I'm Jackie Doucette, and I'm on a mission to discover exactly what life is like beyond retirement. Join me while I chat with people who've already done it, who've retired to something rather than from something. Let's find out together exactly what's waiting for us when we say goodbye to that 9 to 5. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Retirement. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Lisa Winneke. She is a speaker, an author, a connector, the host of the Good News Guide, which is going to be transitioning into the Wholehearted Woman. And she's got a whole wealth of information to share with us, I'm sure. Lisa, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Jackie, for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation, see what unfolds.
Yes, I think it's going to be very interesting. To start with, let's talk a little bit about you, about what brought you into what you're doing, where it started, how you ended up where you are.
Okay, short version. Short version is that I found myself as a mother of twin boys almost 17 years ago this month. They were born 3 months early. It took me into a very, very dark place. And I had already experienced, I'd had an eating disorder for about 20 years that no one knew about, and depression that I hid from the world. But this process of having twin boys born 3 months early really took me to what for me was my rock bottom. And so over the past, for 14 years almost, I have been climbing my way out of it and coming back to a sense of knowing who I am, reconnecting. And there has been obviously a whole host of healing the stories and the wounds that had me in that place for so many years, so disconnected from self and really from the world. So that was sort of the impetus to begin this transformational, this healing journey. And then about 2.5 years ago, I had another sort of pivotal moment, and I went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza, but I went to a retreat, my first of 4, as it turned out, my first retreat in 2018. And it was on day 4, and I went into a very deep meditation. And during this, I came out of this meditation and I saw my marriage for what it was, which was, it was over. It was done. That, what I wanted in life was to experience deep connection, growth, transformation. And the way it wasn't available to me. We'd been seeing a counsellor for a period of time. So I accessed something outside of my senses, outside of what I was consciously aware of. And once I saw that, I couldn't go back as much as I wanted to, Jackie, because I was so afraid of leaving a man that was good, kind, generous, who was a great father. I was afraid of doing it on my own because he had always been there and saved me. So the idea of being on my own with 3 boys that I found at the time, I'd had, for most of the time growing up with those boys, I found motherhood really challenging. And so the idea of stepping out of a marriage as well and being a single parent scared me to no end. But there was something inside of me that compelled me forward. There was a lot of judgment from my parents. What was I doing? This was an irresponsible idea. They thought he was a really great man, a good man, great father, great husband. What was I doing? And I couldn't explain to them that there was just this deep knowing inside me that had to make this choice. And so that was the start of really stepping into what I believe into myself as a wholehearted woman. If I look back at the time being married when I was healing from brokenhearted, like completely disconnected from self, to living in a state where things were okay. They were manageable. They were on paper, they looked good, but there was still something missing. And the missing link was I wasn't deeply connected to living my authentic self, which was, all the things that I'm doing now. So that choice and the choices that I've made in stepping out of the marriage then allowed me to see something that I really wanted to create, which was the Good News Guide. I love connecting people. I love human transformation. I love learning. And so the Good News Guide was birthed as a result of me connecting again to my heart and what I was being called to create once I'd stepped out of the marriage. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Very, very well, actually. So basically, through all of that, what I'm hearing is you had a life that outwardly was wonderful. Everybody thought it was great. Things were going well for you, but you were lost inside it, and you needed to find a way out to be really you. And although you had a big fear of stepping away from what everybody thought was wonderful and perfect, you can't be you without, stepping away and saying, that's not the way it's got to be.
That's exactly right. And, that it took a lot of courage, but, people say, Lisa, you're so courageous, but it was a choice. And I think this is the thing, the more I have backed myself and tuned into what I intuitively know to be right for me, the more I receive the support that I needed, whether that's, whether you believe in something greater than yourself. I do. So I feel like I've got a team of support, both in this realm and beyond. And so I kept calling in and I kept asking for that support to take me to that next step. And yes, there was overcoming a whole lot of other things in the result of stepping away from the marriage to lead me again back to being more of who I was, which is I am bold. I'm a big personality. I can be a big personality. I'm a person that wants to be on the stage. That has been with me since I was a young child. And now I'm able to reconnect with that and be that and not play her down, not shrink her, not tell her that this is not her time, that her time is done. I had a big story around I'm almost 50. My time is done. Maybe, there are those in their 20s and 30s coming through. And then I really got connected to everything that I have experienced in this lifetime, and maybe if you believe in others, has led me to know what it's like to feel aligned with who I am, to really love who I am, to back myself, to know that vulnerability and not knowing everything in front of me, for the uncertainty, but still being with myself, has led me to feel more alive and more energized and more inspired and essentially happier with life. So, and it's a continuing journey. It's, I'm 49 and who knows what it's going to be like at 59 or 69. And that excites me because I finally feel like I am living my life, the life that I've come here to live, the life that, makes me happy. May not be the life that I was raised to see as happy, but it's my life and it feels good for me.
So with what you're doing, you're helping other people get to that spot where they feel that and where they're living for themselves and they're living who they should be. How do you, now maybe I don't want to start that with how do you, for people who are moving on into their retirement years or moving on into a new phase of life, wherever they happen to be in years, how would you go about helping them to get to where you are? Because I think lots of people are happy and they're living their life the way they want to. But I think as we get a little bit older, a lot of us don't really think of things quite that way. We look at our life and we say, it's good enough. They don't think it could be better. So how do you help people accept that it could be better and feel that they're ready to maybe move into something more?
I think it's a great question. The first thing I would say is something I agree. I think a lot of people settle, and I'm not saying settling for something that's bad, even though I don't like that word.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good. Now, this is where I'm at now, that I'm not special. What I'm now creating for my life is extraordinary. And I plan, and I have a very clear intention that all areas of my life need to be soaring. That's because it's available. It's available to all of us. So I think the first point is to actually acknowledge if you are settling for okay or mediocre. So there's, and honor where you're at. So accept where you're at, honor where you're at, and then ask that question. Okay, if I have an opportunity to live my greatest life, what area or what areas in my life are not soaring? Where do I have that niggle inside me that's like, if only, or this is pretty good, but it would be great if this was happening, whether it's in relationship, whether it's with your health, whether it's, whatever it might be. So that would be the first question, because unless we have a vision for what we believe, that what we want to create, we're not going, there's nowhere to go to. Right. Having clarity about what we want is the second step. And then backing yourself, like really being with yourself and saying, okay, so what do I really, really, really want now? Like, for the next year or the next 5 years or the next 10 years, what's going to make me so happy right now? What are my values? Because if we're not living our values, then we're not going to be living a life that's soaring and thriving and flourishing. So what are my values really? Am I living those values? And if I'm not, well, then why not? Am I saying yes to something that's not aligned with my values and it's taking me away from doing the things that I want to be doing, which make me happy? So that's sort of part of the process of what I would be doing. I mean, there's quite a structured process from taking people from living half-hearted to embodying. And so there's a big part of it is how to embody the wholehearted woman or man, but I'm particularly working with women. So yeah, that would be where I would start. And that's a great starting point, because there's a lot of questions you can ask and a lot of time to reflect. And I use journaling to working with clients and myself, asking my higher self, asking my intuitive, knowing what is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I am doing that's not making me happy, that I could pivot and change and create something more in my life?
When you're working with women, do you find that oftentimes they're feeling a little bit guilty about focusing on themselves, that they're spending all the time saying, what do I want? It's counterintuitive, I guess, is the only word I can come up with. It goes against our nature to be worrying about what we want instead of worrying about what everybody else wants.
It's a deep generational wound for most women, deep, that we put everyone before ourselves. And it's one that I've rewritten, and I've rewritten for the generations before me and that have passed, because the legacy, and I'm really big into my legacy that I'm leaving, primarily my boys. I've got 3 boys. I want to leave the legacy for my boys, that they see a woman, a being, a model for them of what it looks like to live wholeheartedly, aligned, because only when I do that am I going to show them what it looks like to live a life of greatness, for them to know what that looks like. So if I'm putting other people's needs before my own, if I'm saying yes to others and saying no to me, that leaves me in a place of resentment, depletion, and also taking responsibility for how others are experiencing emotions, how they are in life. And that's one of the greatest things that I've had to break, as for me personally, is I was, for all my growing up years, it was my responsibility to look after the emotional state of my family. They were not in a position. Now, I didn't know this obviously at the time. So growing up, I carried the weight of responsibility for everyone around me, for me to process their emotions, because I'm an empath, to process their emotions, to manage their emotions, and to always be responsible for them feeling good or avoiding them not feeling great. So to answer your question, it is to me, it is the most important thing we can do as women, is to look after our physical, emotional, and spiritual needs, because only then, I've got a great friend that brings in the science with psychology, and she explains that only when we're taking care of ourselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually. If we are depleted, we are then behaving in our relationships either as the wounded child or the overwhelmed parent. And I love this concept that when we are full, we are coming into relationship with whomever we are in our best possible form. They're going to get the greatest experience with us, and we are going to create a space where they feel safe, seen, and heard and loved, which is what we all want. And we can only do that when we are full.
Exactly. You can't get water from an empty cup. Yep. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not helping anybody. Perfect. So again, I know you deal mostly, I'm assuming, I shouldn't say I know, most of your clients are probably younger than retirement age. They're trying to get on track in their life, set things along the right road before they go too far wrong. For people who have already been doing that for 40, 50, maybe 60 years, is it still possible to come back?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful question. And the first person that comes to my mind, and I've got chills even saying it, is my mum. And she's in her 70s. And it's never, ever, ever, ever too late. We have a life. This is the gift. And I don't see there being any actual mistakes in life. You know, I could say, and I did for a long time, I wasted 20 years. I wasted 20 years or more in a space of such deep self-loathing. But now I have such gratitude for all of the experiences in life. So there was never any failure on my part. There were never any mistakes. It was all perfect. Because if I hadn't experienced all of that, I wouldn't know what it's like to connect with myself and others. I wouldn't know what it's like to feel wholehearted. I wouldn't know how to back myself to be vulnerable and ask for what I need and say what it is that's on my mind and in my heart. So absolutely, it is never, ever, ever too late. All it takes is a choice to start from right here, right now. I want to create something different. And so the next question is, what do I want to create? What do I want for the rest of my life? Because I am a powerful creator. I've created everything to date. So now what is it that I intentionally and consciously want to create for myself moving forward?
Well, that's good news. I think that there's always a chance to change, always a chance to move forward and make things a little bit different.
And I mean, I can't remember the books that I've read, but there are stories inside books where people have changed on their deathbeds, and that has completely rewritten their whole story in their lifetime. So I don't think there's any point in time where it's too late, ever.
And if someone wanted to work with you, what kind of process, how would you start the process with them? I assume it depends where they're starting, but in general, what kind of programs do you have to help people?
So I have as I mentioned before we pressed record, I have an intense 90-day program where I work with women over 90 days, and I take them through the framework of working from half-hearted to wholehearted. But before that, there is an application process, because I'm very clear on the women that I will work with, and there really needs to be a right fit. You know, there needs to be a deep commitment to self that this is actually really what they want. I've worked with women in the past that have been half-hearted in the program, and their commitment to, it's not about committing to me, it's about committing to self. And so there is that process. And really where we start from is, where are you? Where are you on your journey of wholeheartedness? I've got, a number of pillars that we look at that they can then determine, and we determine together where they are and where the blocks and what are the things that are standing in their way of stepping into living wholeheartedly, which, in my framework is somebody who's living authentically. That is choosing vulnerability as a superpower, because only when we are vulnerable can we meet another, can we connect with another, can we actually experience the life that we are wanting to experience in every moment. Courage is a big part of living wholeheartedly. connection to self and to source, or whatever it is that you like to call it. And one that's purposeful. Now, that doesn't have to mean purposeful in work, but that's purpose-driven. You know, the importance of having a purpose when we get up in the morning. And that could be when you retire. My purpose is to be healthy and vital and to be engaged with my family and have deep, nourishing relationships. You know, it's different for everyone, no matter where you are in your life. So, and then I take them through a process in there, which it's deep, and it is me helping them cross the bridge to reconnect with their wholeheartedness, and then to embody that state, and then, you know, watch them soar, which is the best part.
Like the mama bird pushing them out of the nest.
Yeah, and I'm here and I'm holding space, but I'm getting to watch you, because the thing is, one of my greatest superpowers is I can see so clearly. I see what's standing in the way of people living wholeheartedly. I see their potential. I see the things that do make them happy, and it's just, rather than me showing them that, it's me creating a framework and a space that they can actually see that for themselves, and that's where the gold is.
And I think that's probably, while it's the hardest thing, it's probably the best way to have someone see something, you know, because if you just tell them what they need to do, they're not going to, not going to follow that path.
And this is the beauty of connecting with, really opening up to our intuition and connecting with something outside what we know, is that all of this is available to us. And so when a woman, we're all intuitive, but often we've lost that. We haven't used that muscle in life because that's not the way most of us are conditioned. But that is our power. Like, that is our superpower. We're highly, highly intuitive. And when we live from that place of being guided by our intuition, then life just flows. Life is simple. Life is magical.
So when you help people find their passion, I think that's probably the part that would be the hardest for a lot of people, and potentially the hardest for people who are transitioning out of a job where they've been working for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe not in anything that they're passionate about, but the job they had to do because it paid the bills. Finding your passion has got to be the greatest feeling, but the hardest thing to do without some sort of guidance. And I'm just wondering how you help people figure out what their passion might be.
It took me a long time. So I think the first point is that really is honoring and accepting that you've been living a life that hasn't been filled with passion, and healing that aspect, because that's part of the process. And then I've done a lot of inner work, a lot of work with my young child, my inner teenager, my inner young woman, young adult, young mother, and reconnecting to all of those parts of me and bringing her back to wholeness, so then I can remember. Because it's not discovering, it's remembering what we're passionate about. What I was passionate about as a kid was magic, was my imagination, was connecting to people, was standing up in front of people and sharing and communicating. So it's not a discovering, I don't feel. I think it's a remembering of what actually innately inside of us brings us joy, that makes us feel alive. And so it's coming back and really reconnecting and creating and cultivating, developing a relationship with our inner selves, where we can listen and tune in and remember what it is that brings us, that lights us up. And also in that process, there's exploring and experimenting and playing with, okay, I'm going to play with the idea of going to a class, an X class, and I'm going to see how I feel. How's my body feel when I do that? Do I feel alive? Is that something I enjoy? Okay, no, it wasn't. Okay, so I'm going to. So rather than thinking we need to have it, that needs to be one, or we need to tick the box, there might be a number of things that make us feel alive, that we're passionate about. But I think when we ask that question, what did you love doing as a younger child, where hours would pass and you wouldn't even notice, they're the things we still enjoy.
I love that. And that's the thing that I'm glad you said that, because in the program that I offer, I do the same thing. I ask them to sit down and think about what they did as a kid, what they loved doing, what they spent their days doing, because those are the things kids do, what they love. They put aside all the things that they don't enjoy. Yeah, that's great.
Well, we're aligned in that way, and I think that question, when it was posed to me a number of years ago, because I was so disconnected from myself. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what brought me joy. I didn't know what none of those things had been relevant to me. It really did take me time to reconnect, but when I did, it was, oh yes, I'm highly imaginative. I love creating. I love creating with my mind. That is exactly as I am now. And that's what brings me to life. That's what inspires me. So whatever it is that inspires you, that energizes you, more of that.
So when one of the things that we talked about at the very beginning was you've got your YouTube channel, your podcast, and the little, the transitioning that's going to be happening. But can you talk a little bit about what the Good News Guide is about, and what the Wholehearted Woman is going to be about? What people can expect if they go there.
Yeah. So look, it's more so, there's not going to be a huge difference insofar as I'm still going to be involved in the similar conversations. My biggest thing is to bring conversations that I resonate with. So people that I resonate with, I resonate with their work, and it's all for me about integrity. So them being in integrity with what I want to bring to the world. And so the Good News Guide was created as a container for people to come, that was a trusted source where I plugged people in to coaches, experts, thought leaders that they could work with in the spaces of anything to do with relationships, parenting, wealth, sexology, human potential and genius. So really I've covered a lot. I don't think that that's going to change. But again, as I said, I'm in the germination phase of the Wholehearted Woman. So I can't say for sure the difference, but I'm stepping into the embodiment of what this container will be, which is really, as I share with you, what the Wholehearted Woman is all about, bringing more of that to the world, to show others, to demonstrate to others, what does wholehearted living look like, and showing that through a number of different conversations. So the Good News Guide, as I said, it was built based on, I wanted to bring information to the world in a large way, information that I had to seek out to do my own healing. And so new information, insights to expand people's minds beyond what they had previously known, and ultimately to connect people more deeply with their hearts. Because when I started living from my heart, when I stepped out of marriage, life changed significantly and in ways that I could never, ever have imagined. So that won't change with a Wholehearted Woman. It just feels like there's a different energetic frequency to the Good News Guide. I just didn't resonate any longer with those words. And the Wholehearted Woman is very much an embodiment of that. So we'll see. But there will be still a show. And look, maybe I will also speak to men, because I really do love being in conversation with men as well. So maybe the Wholehearted Woman will have conversations with men. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Sounds like it's going to be really interesting, as is the Good News Guide. I've listened to a few of the episodes, and I listened, I watched. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Thank you.
How will people find you if they want to? Obviously from the Good News Guide as a YouTube channel, but how else can they reach out to you?
The best way is my website, lisawinneke.com, and they can contact me. There's links to the Good News Guide. There's links to the podcast. You can read about some of the people that I have as experts on the show. It's all there. So that's the best way to contact me. And if you're interested in the mentorship program, you can also email me, because at this stage I haven't got anything up online, but it'll be available pretty soon, hopefully.
Wonderful. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with the listeners about what you're doing or what's coming up?
Mm. What just came to me was, if you're sitting here listening or driving or walking and you have a nudge inside you, there's a niggle inside you that's saying, there's more for life, there's more for me, I'd ask you to honor that and really don't avoid or ignore, but really listen. And then from that place, then you have a choice, whether you choose to take action and do something, make some changes, ask some deeper questions, seek support in supporting you to cross that bridge. Yeah, that would be the thing that I would say. Don't not listen to those nudges, because that's where the magic is contained, when we listen and we act upon that.
Fabulous. I listen to the voice inside me when maybe I shouldn't. Sometimes that little voice is saying things that nobody should be listening to.
Are we talking? Okay, so we're talking about the voice in the mind, or the voice of, or the message from our heart.
The voice in the mind is telling me things I shouldn't be listening to.
Okay. No. I absolutely. That's a great discernment. Thank you. No. I'm talking about the feeling that's just sort of those nudges and niggles that are expanding us. They're not here to contract us. They're not here to shut us down, to judge us, to criticize it. They're wanting us to expand into life more. They're the nudges I'm talking about.
So something that's saying, as you're driving along, I could be doing whatever. It's just, I could be doing this.
I wish I had more time for X.
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't said yes to this, because now I can't say, in saying yes to somebody else, I'm saying no to me. Oh, even acknowledging those things.
Right.
Where am I prioritizing others over me?
Perfect. Well, thanks, Lisa. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. We've got some really deep things to think about now, I think.
Oh, great. I love that. That's what I love, that when I can drop some seeds and have people just expand their ideas of what's available. I love that. Thank you. That was a beautiful gift to give back to me.
I think it's time for everybody to sit down and say, what did I do when I was a kid? Because I'm missing out on it now.
It's a great question. Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this episode of Beyond Retirement. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Are you ready to start rocking your retirement? Head on over to www.beyondretirement.ca/rocking it and sign up to plan out your own roadmap for retirement. Don't wait till it's too late.